Hare Krishna, good morning dear devotees from Srila Mayapur. So today we're not going to have our general scheduled class. We're going to continue speaking about Bhakti and the Mode of Passion, but we'll do that on our next session on Wednesday. Instead we'll have a special katha today about Guru Purnima, the disappearance of Srila Sanatan Goswami, and the disappearance of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. We'll also sing a special song as well. Hino Prabhu Kota Gela Chaja Thakur. Hino Prabhu Kota Gela Chaja Thakur. Kahamura Charubuka Kaha Kavira Ahamura Swarupa Ahasanata Ahamura Swarupa Ahasanata Ahamura Swarupa Ahasanata Ahadasharabu Naklapatita Bhavan Ahadasharabu Naklapatita Bhavan Kahamura Vatanjuga Kahakavira Ikakale kota gela gorana charas. Ikakale kota gela gorana charas. Pashane kutibo mata Anale Pashibo Kuchibo Mata Anale Pashibo Golanga Gunera Nidhi Kota Vilkago Golanga Gunera Nidhi Kota Vilkago Sesaba Sangira Sande Jekwala Vilas Se Sandana Kaya Kande Naro Tomodas Sesaba Sangira Sande Jekwala Vilas Se Sandana Kaya Kande Naro Tomodas Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Bhakti Charu Srila Sanatan Goswami Thakur ki jai, Guru Purnima Gora Gradanya Gana Gota Goloruharam Gauranga Gurachama Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namani Snigdha Cheta Supranita Vagninam Charasa Plutam Prabhupada Gata Prana Nomi Bhakti Charupadam. I offer my obeisances under the lotus feet of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami, who is very soft-hearted and expert at compiling devotional literature. He eloquently speaks the pastimes of Lord Krishna. His heart is full of the mellows of devotional service, and his life and soul is Srila Prabhupada. Vairagya Yud Bhakti Rasam Prayatna Apayayan Mam Anubipsam Andam Kripam Buddhaya Padaduka Duki Sanatanam Tam Prabhum Ashrayami. It's a verse written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami from his Valap Kusa Manjari. Sri Sanatan Goswami is an ocean of mercy who grieves for the distress of others. Although I was blinded by ignorance and willing to do so with great diligence, he induced me to drink the nectarian liquid mellows. Panchakalpatarubhischa kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in Greek philosophy, there's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And this is also a day something like that. It's the appearance day of some great personality, and it's also the disappearance day of some other dear Vaishnavas. For Vaishnavas, they don't distinguish so much between the appearance and the disappearance. Just like the sun, when the sun sets, it means the sun is rising in some other place. And so we don't believe in disappearance from the Vaishnavas. But nonetheless, we have to go through this in each and every one of us in our lives, sometime or another, to be separated from the dear Vaishnavas. And it's Krishna's way to help us to go deeper in our hearts, to be less external, and to begin to feel the separation from Krishna. As our Guru Maharaj once told his friend Jagadatma Prabhu, Jagadatma asked him, You're always telling us that we should cry for Krishna, but it's theoretical. And Guru Maharaj told him then, after I leave this world, then you'll be able to cry. So it's a practical realization, because both union and separation are there for the Vaishnavas. On this day, we observe the disappearance day, or the Viraha Utsav of Srila Sanatan Goswami, one of the great acharyas in our line. And also yesterday, on this day, another very dear devotee, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, left this world. It's also the day of Guru Purnima. And Guru Purnima is the appearance day of Srila Vyasadeva. It's sometimes called Vyasa Purnima. And this is a festival which is observed throughout India by different Hindus, but also by Buddhists and Jains, and even by secular students. They choose this day to express their gratitude and to offer worship to the spiritual leaders. So what a perfect day for Bhakti Charu Maharaj to leave. The first day of Chaturmasya in America. Today is the day of Guru Purnima. Here the Tithi appears on this day in India, but it already appeared in America when he left this world. So this is the day when Srila Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, the author of the Mahabharata, was born to the sage Parashara Muni, and his mother, whose name was Satyavati. She was a fisherman's daughter. And it's not only considered to be the appearance day of Vyasadeva, but it's also considered that this was the day that he began writing the Brahma Sutras, his commentary, his Vedanta Sutra. It's also a day which is traditionally observed and celebrated by the Buddhists, because they say that this is the day that Lord Buddha gave his first sermon at Sarnath in Uttar Pradesh. And it's also especially observed amongst the yogis. There it's said that in Shiva Purana, that thousands of years ago there was one effulgent yogi who suddenly appeared in the mountains of the Himalayas. And no one knew what his origin was, but his presence was very extraordinary. Many, many people gathered around him, but he was completely in samadhi, and he had no signs of life. But once in a while, some tears of ecstasy would come down his face, and so people knew from that he was still alive. And people were standing around him, waiting to speak to him, to see what this person was. And gradually, as time went by, they started going away, until only 7 people remained. And then after some time, that yogi opened his eyes, and those 7 people pleaded with him, please, we want to experience whatever is happening to you. And he just motioned for them to go away, but they wouldn't leave. And then finally he closed his eyes again. And those 7 men, they stood there, and the days turned into weeks, which turned into months, and turns into years. But that yogi didn't open his eyes again. After 84 years of sadhana, on this day, which is known as Guru Purnima, that yogi, he opened his eyes, and he began to speak to these 7 people and considered them to be qualified students, qualified disciples. And the 7 people, they later became famous as the Saptarshis, or the 7 rishis. And that yogi was Lord Shiva. So this is a very, very auspicious day for so many reasons. And on this day, we contemplate the benefits of glorifying the Vaishnava. Guru Maharaj used to often quote a verse. Vaishnavera gunagan korile jivera chan sunirachi sadhu guru mukhe. Vaishnavera gunagan korile jivera chan. I've heard from the Vaishnavas that if you glorify a devotee, a Vaishnava, then korile jivera chan, you'll be delivered very easily. Krishna will be very pleased and you'll get his mercy. by glorifying the Vaishnavas. So this day is a Viraha Utsav, and that means two things. Viraha means separation. For the devotees in this world, it's a great time of separation in which they cry. But for the residents of the spiritual world, it's a great utsav, or a great festival, because this personality returns to them. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati described in one letter in 1935, he said, "We are extremely grief-stricken to hear that such and such person has left this world to go to his eternal abode. Everything happens by the will of the Lord. The Lord picks up first those who are closest to him." We have no objection to that. We are suffering due to our own misfortune and lack of qualifications. By remembering this devotee's attachment for devotional service, we can also gradually enter his destination. It is necessary to write about him in great detail in such magazines as the Gaudiya, and we are planning to provide a memorial spread. There should also be a fitting memorial for him in the form of a service. So this is the tradition established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. In the disappearance of one of his dear disciples, he ordered that the devotees should come together and they should glorify him, they should make some memorial, they should write about him and print about him in a magazine. For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, again, this is a very, very painful day when a great Vaishnav leaves. And today especially we're remembering Sanatan Goswami, but Sanatan Goswami wasn't someone we ever got to know. But Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj was someone that I had the good fortune to have some association with. He was very, very kind to me and was encouraging me always. He would come every year for our Guru Maharaj's Disappearance Festival and speak very wonderfully. And sometimes when he would come to Bhubaneswar, he would call for me. Some devotee would come, "Maharaj is calling for you, he wants to take prasadam with you." And we would go, and I saw what a very gentle person he was. He's a gentleman both in terms of his nature, he's very gentle, but also he was a very refined person. And when we took prasadam, I could see they had a number of disciples serving, and if someone would serve the sabji before the rice, because you're supposed to start with the sabji, with the rice, or someone would start with the paneer sabji before the bitter melon sabji, because you're supposed to start with the bitter melon. There's a certain sequence of things. He would chastise them in a very, very heavy way. They were very, very attentive. Maharaj was very, very wonderful, cultured person. So on this day, we remember a couple of verses. One is from Raghunath Das Goswami's Stavavali, where he describes Sunyayate Maha Goshtam Girendra Jagadayate Vyagratundayate Kundam Jivatu Rahitasya Me. He said that now that I no longer have the sustainer of my life, now that I'm in separation from the devotees, and especially Rupa and Sanatan Goswami was speaking, then the land of Braj, he says, has become empty and desolate. And Govardhan Hill has become like a great snake, Girindro Jagarayate. And Radhakund has become like the gaping mouth of a ferocious tiger. So those activities and that Sangha, which gave us so much pleasure and happiness in association with the Vaishnavas, they become the source of pain in their separation. This separation is a very, very powerful mood amongst the Vaishnavas. It's described by Krishna. He spoke to Uddhava. Rupa Goswami describes this in his Uddhava Sandesh. Madvishlaisha jvala napatali jvalaya jvaragangaha savetasmin nidana paravim sakino pyashashrasan gopinetravali vigalitayar buribir baspavaram puraistesham yadi niravadir nabhisheko tarishyat. In Mathura, Krishna called for Uddhava, And he told them that the dear gopis, if they weren't crying, then all of Braj's trees would have long ago been burned in a great fire of separation from me. But because the gopis were crying so intently, then somehow those trees have survived. So this is the nature of separation, and especially separation from the dear devotees, and especially for the disciples, separation from Guru is a very painful thing. Prabhupada wrote a letter in 1968 to Krishnadas, our dear friend. He wrote to him, he said, to feel separation from the spiritual master or Krishna is a very good position. That means one who is in pure love with Krishna and is representative of the spiritual master, he thinks always of them. And this thinking process is Krishna consciousness. If we can think always of Krishna, even in separation, that is Krishna consciousness. And on the absolute platform, there's no difference between separation and meeting. The separation is also meeting. Rather, in separation, one relishes a loving relationship as being more tasty. Prabhupada said, so don't be disappointed that you're separated from me. I'm always thinking of you, how you're making progress there. And Prabhupada wrote a letter to Satadanya in 1972. So far as personal association with the Guru is concerned, I was only with my Guru Maharaj 4 or 5 times. But I've never left his association, not even for a moment. Because I'm following his instructions, I've never felt any separation. There are some of my godbrothers here in India who had constant personal association with Guru Maharaj, but who are neglecting his orders. This is just like the bug who's sitting on the lap of the king. He may be very puffed up by his association, but all he can succeed in doing is biting the king. Personal association is not so important as association through service. When our revered spiritual master, Sri Srimad Gaura Govinda Maharaj, left this world in a very, very sudden way, we were shocked. I was here in Mayapur at that time when Guru Maharaj left. And a few days after he left, myself, along with a few godbrothers, we went to visit one of Srila Prabhupada's senior godbrothers, whose name was Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, who was a very wonderful Vaishnav and who had a lot of love for Srila Prabhupada. And we went to him, we said, Maharaj, what should we do? Our Guru Maharaj has left. And he spoke to us in a way that I'll never forget. He said, don't think that your Guru is gone. Rather, you should think that now he's just hiding from you. He's hiding in the bushes and watching to see what you're going to do. If we think that the Vaishnava is gone, if we think that Gurudev is dead, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in one article, he says that Gurudev is not dead, rather you're dead. He calls it man morabhav, or being brain dead. If we think that Gurudev is gone, because Gurudev is a spiritual personality, and he's always present. But just as Krishna told the gopis, don't worry, there's no question of separation between you and I. But the gopis, they weren't satisfied with that. Sometimes people, they say, well, even though Gurudev, he's in America, this and that, I can associate with him on Facebook. And I think to myself that if you were to tell that to the gopis of Vrindavan, that don't worry, Krishna's gone to Mathura, but he's on Facebook, and you can associate with him there. I don't think they would be happy. And so in a similar way, we're not happy just to hear that, oh, Gurudev is still present. But at the same time, it's very important for us to understand that. And in some ways, he's even more present today, because during his physical presence, it was very difficult to meet such a personality. But after his physical disappearance, then he becomes more accessible to the devotees who have faith. So on this day, I'd like to read and think a little something about Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And Perhaps something also about Sanatan Goswami, if we have time. Bhakti Charu Maharaj was a very great warrior, a great general in Srila Prabhupada's army. And whether we had the good fortune of having his personal association or not, we should lament that such a powerful personality has left this world. Bhakti Charu Maharaj was one of the co-directors here in Mayapur, and he did amazing service for Srila Prabhupada. And in separation from such a person, we feel very, very sad. When someone is present, sometimes devotees, they have differences of opinion, they have different moods, but after the disappearance of a Vaishnava, we should appreciate and see what they've done. So I'd like to read a little something and contemplate a little something about Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He was born here in West Bengal in 1945, and he spent most of his early life in Kolkata. In 1970, he left India and went to Germany to study chemistry. And while he was in Germany, somehow he began reading Vedic literatures. And he became very inspired by the culture, the richness of his own Indian culture, his own Indian heritage. Then in 1975, he decided that chemistry is not what I want to practice. And he came back to India deciding that he wanted to pursue spiritual life wholeheartedly. He wanted to become a sadhu. He wasn't satisfied, even though he was born in an aristocratic family. He had a lot of wealth. He had a very good education, but he wasn't satisfied with any of that. And so he came back to India, and again he began studying different Vedic literatures. And then Maharaj realized, I need to find a guru. And so he began traveling all over India in a similar way that our Guru Maharaj did. We were just hearing a lecture from our Guru Maharaj this morning. And in the beginning of the lecture, he starts off by offering respect to Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And he said, my dear brother, Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And he was appreciating how Srila Prabhupada came to Bhubaneswar partly by the endeavor of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And they had a very special relationship. Sometimes there was a little differences of opinion. Bhakti Charu Maharaj once came to me here in Mayapur on Guru Maharaj's disappearance day, and he came to me and he began crying and he embraced me. And we were speaking privately, and I was shocked to see the humility and the Vaishnava qualities that Maharaj began to display. In great humility, he spoke something to me, whom I'm just like his spiritual nephew, just like a small child. And Maharaj told me, he said, I feel like I committed some offenses to Gaur Govinda Maharaj, and you please forgive me. I say, Maharaj, who am I? And I won't forget that. But today, hearing Guru Maharaj speak like this, I could understand sometimes there was some little difference of opinion between them. Sometimes even amongst the gopis in Vrindavan, there's some differences of opinion because they have a very intense mood. But Guru Maharaj always considered Bhakti Charu Maharaj to be his very dear brother. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj in turn also had great love for our Guru Maharaj. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he used to come every year pretty much to Guru Maharaj's disappearance festival here in Mayapur. And he would speak about him in a wonderful way. And I remember one year how he mentioned that he used to read together with our Guru Maharaj from Jaiva Dharma, which at that time was not translated into English, and they were reading from Bengali and relishing their association. And in many ways, I think they were very kindred spirits, and after Guru Maharaj left, kindred in the sense that they both relished Krishna Katha and Krishna Nam very, very much, and they were both very, very dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. After Guru Maharaj left this world, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj became the GBC in Bhubaneswar, and many of Guru Maharaj's disciples took shelter of him. And then after Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj left, then Bhakti Charu Maharaj became the GBC there, and basically the main spiritual master. And therefore yesterday in Bhubaneswar, I think all night they had some 24-hour kirtan or something, still going on today, I think, for Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and the devotees are there crying and speaking about him. So he's very close to our family in many different ways. And just as Guru Maharaj traveled, he told us, all over India and in the Himalayas and Cape Comorin and different places searching for Guru, So also did Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He traveled all throughout the Himalayas, and for 1 year he was trying to find Guru, but he couldn't find, he met many sadhus, but he couldn't find anybody that he had faith in, that he could fully surrender to. And he was becoming depressed and disappointed. And then when he'd almost given up hope, he found a book, an English book, called Nectar of Devotion, by someone named His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And so he started reading that book, and he, wow, this is amazing. Huh? And so then he started collecting other books of Srila Prabhupada, and he had a strong desire to meet Srila Prabhupada. But Prabhupada at that time was preaching in America. In late 1976, Bhakti Charu Maharaj joined the temple here in Mayapur, West Bengal, and he started doing different services and just waiting for Srila Prabhupada's return to India. I remember Bhakti Charu Maharaj commenting. Later, when Prabhupada came, they had a meeting, it was in January 1977, and Srila Prabhupada left just shortly after that. Bhakti Charu Maharaj didn't have such a long period of association with Srila Prabhupada, just maybe 1 year. But immediately upon meeting Bhakti Charu Maharaj and seeing his simplicity, his childlike nature, his devotional qualities, his education, his expertise in Bengali and English, Prabhupada brought him close to him and gave so much affection to Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And Prabhupada, in the first meeting, he instructed Bhakti Charu Maharaj that he should translate his books into Bengali. And Prabhupada practically immediately made him the secretary for Indian affairs. He gave Bhakti Charu Maharaj first and second initiation at the same time, just a few months after they met in Guru Purnima day here in Mayapur. And then 3 months after that, Prabhupada gave him sannyas. And you may see in some of the photos, there's some beautiful photos of Srila Prabhupada with his godbrother, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. And you'll see sometimes Subhag Maharaj is there and Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Prabhupada brought them with him to meet Srila Sridhar Maharaj, which is a very special thing, I think, because Sridhar Maharaj is someone that Prabhupada had very high regard for. Even Prabhupada, in one letter, he said, I consider him to be my Siksha Guru. And who did he bring with him amongst all of his disciples to when he went to see Srila Sridhar Maharaj? It was these devotees. Huh? So then Prabhupada requested that Bhakti Charu Maharaj would travel with him. And so for the last year of Prabhupada's presence, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was traveling and serving Srila Prabhupada. He was cooking for him. And as I mentioned, Bhakti Charu Maharaj later commented several times, I heard him speak about this, what it was like for him at that time in ISKCON. And don't mind me saying this, but in ISKCON at that time, there was kind of a American mafia. It was very difficult for devotees like Lokanath Maharaj and for our Guru Maharaj and Bhakti Charu Maharaj and Subhag Maharaj and other devotees who were coming from Vaishnava backgrounds, but things were being controlled by a group of Westerners and who, as Bhakti Charu Maharaj described, sometimes were very rough and a little intense. And it was a hard time. It was a hard time for him because Srila Prabhupada brought him close, but at the same time, he was a very new person. As Niranjan Maharaj was telling us last night, that Bhakti Charu Maharaj always respected him as a senior devotee, because Niranjan Maharaj had joined a few years prior. But Niranjan Maharaj on his behalf was saying, no, I consider Bhakti Charu Maharaj to be senior in terms of advancement and also in terms of years of practicing Krishna consciousness. So it was a difficult thing for him. But he was serving Srila Prabhupada in a very, very wonderful way, cooking for Prabhupada, bringing his medicine, taking care of Prabhupada in so many different ways. And later, after Srila Prabhupada left, in 1987, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, it was a unanimous vote amongst the GBC that he should be allowed to initiate disciples. And the same year, he became a GBC member. And then the following year, he became the chairman of the GBC. And again, he did that 3 years ago in 2017. By 1995, Maharaj had translated into Bengali all of Prabhupada's writings. more than 50 volumes of books, including Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar Devotion, just as Prabhupada instructed him. And Bhakti Charu used to get up every night at midnight to do that service. And although he was a GBC member, he was a co-director in Mayapur, he had hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands of disciples. Still, he was, this service of Srila Prabhupada of translating his books were very, very close to his heart. Then in 1996, the year our Guru Maharaj left, Bhakti Charu Maharaj took on a very big task. He wanted to make a movie epic of the life of Srila Prabhupada, which he organized and directed himself, and which is called Abhay Charan. And that was broadcast all over national television in India, and later it was made available in DVD format. And then later in 2004, Maharaj began a wonderful temple in Ujjain, the place where it was also known as Avantika, where Krishna and Balaram went to school and studied under Sandipani Muni. And that very beautiful temple is there today. They have deities of Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Krishna Balaram, and Gaura Nitai, and there's a Goshala, there's an Ayurvedic clinic. They have a place where they serve prasadam to school children. I think they serve something like 30,000 school children every day. And they have a rural program also trying to spread Vedic culture amongst the village people. Bhakti Charu Maharaj did many, many wonderful, amazing things. We, the devotees in France and South Africa, think about him a lot. After the GBC guru there years ago had some problems and went away from the practice of bhakti, it was Bhakti Charu Maharaj who became the GBC member for those places. And they were very, very difficult places. I can say for ourselves, we had gone to France for a number of years to give classes, and it's a very, very difficult yatra. But Maharaj gave faith to the devotees there and helped them. And similarly in South France, because of his qualities of sincerity, and devotees could just see his spiritual integrity, it gave them faith. So many, many different projects Bhakti Charu Maharaj has done. He served, and so he was also the GBC for Bhubaneswar, as I mentioned. Here in Mayapur, he's a co-GBC in Kolkata, in Ujjain, in Bangladesh, in Seattle, Washington, many, many different places. And Maharaj, wherever he went, the devotees were very, very struck by his Vaishnava qualities of humility, of kindness, his amazing singing. He was a very talented singer and harmonium player, and he also gave very wonderful classes, very, very deep and thoughtful classes. I know we were there one year also in Switzerland when he came, and many of his disciples came to hear his classes. And Maharaj had disciples all over the world. And at this time, those devotees, they must be crying. It also occurs to me that devotees may, if I can speak in a very frank way, they may have some doubt. Because Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he left this world. He was in Ujjain. It's a holy place. He was in India. He gave his last lecture in Ujjain, and he said that it's not good that I'm here staying back behind lines. I want to be on the front line. This COVID virus is going on, but I'm going to preach in the front lines. And so he went to America, flew into Florida, and sadly, shortly after he arrived, he contracted this disease. And he became very sick, and the devotees took him to the hospital. And for the last few weeks, the devotees, we've been doing kirtan for him here in Mayapur, and devotees all over the world have been doing kirtan for him. And then finally, the doctors are saying it wasn't really anything they could do, and they sent everyone out of the room. They didn't allow any devotees to be with Maharaj. There was no one there doing kirtan with him. Although Bhagavad Gita was there and the Bhagavatam, Maharaj had brought different books, and Maharaj was unconscious on a ventilator when he left his body. Not in the Holy Dham, but in Florida. So let me speak a little frankly about this. Devotees may have some doubt. You say, oh, how is it Guru Maharaj left like this? How can we consider this to be an exalted Vaishnava? We shouldn't think like that. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the 11th Vilas, Srila Sanatan Goswami, he has included a verse which describes how that if a devotee leaves his body, unconscious or asleep, just as the devotees remembered Krishna throughout his life, Krishna will remember him at the time of death, and Krishna will come for him. So what can we say for such an exalted person as Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who took so many devotees on parikramas, who gave thousands of lectures, who preached in the villages, who preached before bankers and business executives and heads of state, who helped so many people come to Krishna consciousness. We shouldn't have any doubt that such a personality, everything was auspicious for him. There's a story that comes to my mind in this regard, which appears in the Bhaktamala of the devotee Nabhadas. Again, we sometimes tell stories from this book. Nabhadas was a devotee in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and who also had great regard for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his Bhaktamala was appreciated both by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who both quoted it. And in fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made it recommended reading as part of their Bhakti Shastri course. So there's a story there about a devotee, his name was Krishnadas, and how he left his body. But before I speak about how he left his body, maybe we should say a few things about what an exalted devotee he was. On one occasion, he went to Delhi to serve Srinathji. Krishnadas was a devotee in the Vallabha Sampradaya. And when he was in Delhi, he saw someone cooking some hot jalebis. And he saw those jalebis, and immediately he thought in his mind, wow, these should be offered to my Thakurji, Srinathji. He was thinking like that. And immediately, out of love for his devotee, Srinathji accepted it. And so it was so much so that when the devotees in Nathdwar, they went to remove the offering plates in the deity room, they found something very strange. There's also a plate of jalebis here. Who put these there? And then they saw that the deity had some of the jalebis in his hand. He was very, very astonished. On another occasion, Krishnadas, he went to Agra, and he heard a woman singing in a very beautiful raga. And he went to her, and he saw that this woman was a prostitute. But she was singing so nice. And he asked her then, would you please come and sing for our Lord? And that prostitute, saying that actually this is a very simple, honest devotee, she agreed to go with him. And he took her, at that time Srinathji was at Govardhan Hill, and he had her take bath in the sacred waters there, and then he decorated her nicely, and he brought her to the temple Srinathji, and he told her, he said, up until now, you've pleased the men of this world, but now you should try to satisfy our Srinathji. And if you do so, you'll see what kind of personality he is. And when she saw the beauty of Srinathji, she became ecstatic, and she started singing in a beautiful way and dancing. And as she was singing and dancing with intense love, suddenly she fell down on the ground and left her body. And Srinathji accepted her service. So such an amazing devotee. There's many different stories that said that on one occasion Srinathji wrote a song on behalf of Krishnadas. There was some transcendental competition between him and Suradas. And that song, which was written by Srinathji for Krishnadas, is still sung today, daily in that temple Srinathji. But one day, when he became elderly, Krishnadas was walking along and he fell into a well and he died. It wasn't a very auspicious way to leave his body. There was no Vaishnavas doing kirtan or anything around him. But by the power of his bhajan, immediately he received a spiritual body. But some of the Vaishnavas and people around, they had some doubts. How is it? Everyone says he's such an advanced devotee, but Krishna just let him fall into this well and die like this. It just doesn't. And so they had some doubts that how can he actually be an advanced devotee? Srinathji understood the doubts of the devotees, and to relieve their distress and remove their doubts, Srinathji manifested before them Krishnadas's spiritual form as a cowherd boy. And they saw there was Krishnadas in his spiritual form walking at the foot of Govardhan Hill. And he spoke to some of the devotees there, and he said, oh, Baladevji, he's gone ahead. I'm following him. And he told them then, you give my respects to Vitalanath, the Charya there. And then he told them that before I left my body, I left some wealth behind, which you should get to use for the deity. And the devotees went, and sure enough, that place where he'd said that he'd left that wealth, they dug in the ground, and there was that wealth was there. And so from this, all their doubts went away. And they understood that actually he was a very, very great personality. Therefore, in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatan Goswami, he said, Nakarma bandhanam janma vaishnavanam chavidyate Vishnu anucharatvam hi moksham ahur manisina. That a Vaishnav, there's no karma, there's no bondage for a Vaishnav. Nakarma bandhanam janma. They don't take birth under karma. Vishnu anucharatvam hi moksham ahur manishinam. Because the wise persons have understood, those persons are manisa, they've understood that the devotees of Krishna, they're eternally liberated. They're not under the control of the laws of material nature. So we shouldn't think that, oh, because Bhakti Charu Maharaj wasn't in the Holy Dham, he was on a ventilator, and there was no Vaishnavas present when he left this world. Don't see things in such a mundane way. How do we see a Vaishnav? We see a Vaishnav, Shutekshita Pata. We see them through our ears. And similarly, we can see Bhakti Charu Maharaj by all the amazing service that he did for Srila Prabhupada, and by the love that Srila Prabhupada had for him. So on this day, a very, very auspicious day, this day of Guru Purnima, Vyasa Purnima, the day that Vyasadeva appeared, the day that Lord Shiva instructed the Saptarishis, the day that Buddha began giving his first lecture, the day that Sanatan Goswami left this world. On this very, very auspicious day, Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj also left this world. And we pray for his blessings on this day, that we may also somehow serve Bhakti Charu Maharaj. I read something very wonderful from some of the Vaishnavas about him yesterday. They were commenting that Bhakti Charu Maharaj was always so absorbed in serving Srila Prabhupada, and one of his favorite comments about quotes of Srila Prabhupada was that Prabhupada told them that your love for me will be shown how you cooperate together after I leave this world. So it's a very great test when the spiritual master leaves this world, but we shouldn't think that he's gone. Rather, we should think that he's just hiding from us right now and watching to see what are we going to do. And during the presence of the spiritual master, there may be some doubt about the sincerity of the disciple. We're not really sure. He's jumping up and down. He has a t-shirt with a picture of his Gurudev and a badge, and he says, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. But Guru Maharaj may have some doubts about their sincerity. But when Guru leaves this world, then it's a time of a great test for the disciple. And at that time, the service of the Guru becomes really a hoitaki. Because Gurudev is no longer present. Now I can leave. I can go away. I can go be in Maya. Or I can argue with the devotees. I can try to assert my superiority and try to obtain some position. The Gurudev is watching to see what we do. And there's no doubt that Bhakti Charu Maharaj is waiting, is watching to see what the devotees would do. It's a very, very painful day for devotees who have gone through this before, disciples of our Guru Maharaj, or disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, or Tamal Krishna Maharaj, or Sridhar Maharaj, and other devotees. They know what it's like to go through this thing. And on this day, I would just like to suggest that any disciples of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, they should remember the loving friendship that Bhakti Charu Maharaj had with all the devotees of ISKCON. And they should understand that there are many devotees who love Maharaj and appreciate him. And I have no doubt that they will give shelter, they'll help any of the Maharaj's disciples who need help at this time. Oh, Indranuj Prabhu has made a wonderful comment. Thank you. He said there was one devotee with Maharaj in the last hour. The hospital staff let him in. Thank you for that comment. We haven't gotten very much news, and if I've said anything wrong, I beg apology because we're just hearing little something now. Let me read a few other comments. We're going to go ahead and stop here. Lynn has written, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful testimony and memories of Bhakti Charu Swamiji. I'm sure there's much grieving amongst his disciples, and I hope that the sweet memories they hold will soon overtake the sorrow of their hearts. Please accept my gratitude for your continued teachings, which you share so freely with us. Thank you, Lynn. Another very deep, heartfelt comment from you. I appreciate it. And Madhupati Prabhu has written something. He says, I'm sure he was just withdrawn from this war theater to be deployed in another battlefield against Maya. Think like that. Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki, Srila Sanatan Goswami ki, Sri Guru Purnima ki, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So if anybody else has any comments or reflections they'd like to share briefly, it's a little late. I'm sorry for going so long. You can go ahead and say something at this time. Anybody? Anything? Okay. So I'm sorry we didn't finish our Bhagavatam, but I'm not sorry we didn't finish our discussion on this verse. We had something special we had to share today. It was a very special day. And I think the devotees will never forget Bhakti Charu Maharaj because of his disappearing on this day of Guru Purnima. Every year they'll remember him. So my thanks to all the Vaishnavas and to Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who was very, very kind to me and always encouraged me in my service to my Guru Maharaj. In our magazine, he was a great supporter in so many ways, and we'll miss his association. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha, Patitanam Pavani.